What's up guys, Perry from Rockville here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up your RPM870 8-channel mixer. Along with the mixer itself, you'll also get a power cable to power your mixer. Now we actually have a few different ways we can set up speakers to the RPM870. For example, we can set up passive speakers like these guys here using the speak-on outputs on the back. There's also quarter-inch outputs that we can use with our passive speakers as well. And we also have these XLR or quarter-inch outputs on top here that we can use with active speakers or subs. To set up my passive speakers, I'm going to need a couple of speak-on cables. I'm going to plug one end into the left A and right A speak-on outputs. Then I'm going to take the other ends and plug them into the speak-on inputs on the back of my speakers. Now because these speakers are passive 8-ohm speakers, we can set up another pair of 8-ohm passive speakers for a total of 4 speakers to use with our mixer. You can do this by daisy chaining your first pair of left and right speakers using the speak-on outputs. For this setup, you want to be super careful not to use 2 4-ohm speakers per channel because that could damage your mixer. So again, if you're going to do this setup, you just want to make sure to use 2 8-ohm speakers per left channel and 2 8-ohm speakers per right channel. And like I mentioned, we can also set up active speakers using the XLR or quarter-inch outputs on top here. You just want to be super careful and make sure all of the speakers you're using for this setup are 8-ohm, because if you use 2 4-ohm speakers, you could damage your speakers or your mixer. Now if we look at the top of the mixer, you'll see that we have 6 different channels that we can use for a microphone with the XLR input, and underneath we have a quarter-inch line input that we can use with line level signals or instruments. So to set up a microphone, I have a mic right here, and I'm also going to grab an XLR cable. I'm going to plug the female end into my mic, then I'm going to plug the other end into one of the XLR inputs here on my mixer, and today we'll use the channel 1 input. If you haven't done so already, we're also going to turn on the mixer using the switch on the back. Next, I'm going to want to raise the gain knob here to set the input. I'm also going to want to raise the fader for channel 1. And then I'm going to want to raise the main left and right faders to hear everything out of my speakers. And now if I turn on my microphone, check 1, 2, you should be able to hear my voice coming out of the speakers. We can also set up our instrument using the line in on the same channel or on a separate channel, just so we have more control over each instrument or microphone. So to show you how to set up an instrument, I'm going to grab my guitar and a quarter-inch instrument cable. I'm going to plug one end of my cable into my guitar, and then I'll plug the other end into any of the line inputs available. For today, I'm going to use channel 2. So now I'm going to want to raise the gain and the volume fader for channel 2. And now if I play my guitar, you'll hear it coming out of the speakers. And the cool thing about this setup in particular is that we can have our microphone and guitar set up at the same time for live performances, band practices, etc. You can follow the same exact steps to set up your line level signal or instrument through the line input. Underneath the line inputs, we have the inserts, so we can set up effects through specific channels. So for example, if I wanted to set up a compressor to channel 1, I would take a Y cable and plug the single end into the insert of channel 1, then plug the other ends into the inputs and outputs of the compressor, and then from there I can set my compressor and have it only affecting channel 1. So like we mentioned before, we have the gain knob to set the input level for anything coming into our mixer, like our microphone, line, or instrument. And if we had something with a high input, like a condenser microphone plugged into any of these channels, we can use the pad button to lower that signal by 25 dB. Below that we have the EQ section, so we can control the high, mid, and low frequencies. So the high frequency knob will control all of the treble coming out of our channel. So for example, if I lowered it, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, you won't hear much of that top end coming out. And if I raised it all the way up, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, you can hear a lot more of that presence. And then we can set it back to the middle, check 1, 2, for a nice balance. We also got the high mid that we can use to increase the presence. So if I raise that, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, you'll hear it a little clearer. I can also lower it, check 1, 2, and then again, it won't be as present. Next, we have the low mid to control more of the low end frequency of the mid range. So if I lower it, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, you're gonna hear a little less body coming out. And if I raise it, check 1, 2, check 1, 2. Sounds a little boxier. And lastly, we have the low knob to control the bass coming out of our voice. So if I lower it, check 1, 2, check 1, 2. You won't hear it coming out as boomy. Then I could raise it, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, and now there's a lot more bass coming out of my voice. Next we have the send knob that we can use with external effects that we set up through the send and return. So for example, I can set up a compressor to the send and return for my mixer here, so that this way it can be used with all of the different channels on our mixer. Then I'm going to want to raise the main send knob here so that everything coming through the mixer is being sent to the compressor. Then I'm going to want to raise the return knob to send the signal back to the mixer. And then from there, if we want the compressor to affect channel 1, we're going to raise the send knob here for channel 1. Underneath we have the effects knob to use the built-in effects of the mixer. And then we have different effects to choose from by using the effects processor here on top. So for example, we have different reverbs we can choose from using the preset selector here. I can use it to select it to any of these presets. So for example, I'm going to set it to preset 4. Then I'm going to use this effects knob here to set the overall level of the effect. I'm also going to want to raise the effects fader here. And then to use the effect with channel 1 specifically, I'm going to raise the effects knob on channel 1. We can also use the parameter 1 and parameter 2 knobs to set the specifics for the effect. For example, while we're using preset 4, we can use parameter 1 for the time of the reverb and parameter 2 for the dampening of the reverb. So once we have that all set, we can raise the effects knob on the channel. Check 1, 2, check 1, 2, and now you'll be hearing some reverb on my voice. We also got different effect presets, so I can switch it over to 13 for the chorus. Check 1, 2, so now you'll be able to hear the chorus coming through my voice. And with this preset, we can use parameter 1 to affect the time of the chorus. Check 1, 2, check 1, 2. And parameter 2 to affect the feedback. So check 1, 2, check 1, 2. You hear it a little more. And then if I turn it the other way, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, you hear it a little less. Another example is preset 14, where we can use parameter 1 to affect the rate. Check 1, 2, check 1, 2. And parameter 2 to affect the depth. Check 1, 2, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, check 1, 2. So we have a lot of different options with the effects processor, so feel free to experiment with the different presets and the parameters so you can really morph the sound. Underneath the effects knob, we have the pan knob to send the signal either more to the left channel or the right channel. So for example, if I set the pan to the left, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, you'll only be able to hear my voice coming out of the left channel. And if I set it to the right, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, you'll hear my voice coming out of the right channel. Below we have the mute button, so we can mute the channel altogether. So I'm talking right now, check 1, 2, and if I press mute, check 1, 2, you won't be able to hear my voice coming through the microphone anymore. Then we can unmute it, check 1, 2, and then you'll be able to hear my voice again. Next to the fader, we also have the solo button to solo specific channels. So if I had multiple microphones plugged into channels 1, 2, and 3, and only wanted to hear the vocal from channel 1, I can press the solo button and only hear everything coming from channel 1. And lastly, we have the fader to set the level coming out of the channels. So if I lower the fader, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, you won't be able to hear it. And then the more I raise it, check 1, 2, check 1, 2, the more you'll be able to hear. Now these controls are going to work the same exact way for channels 1 through 6. And then we have channels 7 and 8, which work independently because it's only used for the MP3 module. So if you had your Bluetooth or USB device connected to the mixer, you're going to use channels 7 and 8 to control the volume with the fader. You can also mute it using the mute button. And then above you also have a 2-band EQ with the high and low knob so you can morph the sound a little bit. You can also fine-tune the sound coming out of the mixer through the left and right channel using the left and right 7-band EQ. So if you felt like the left channel of speakers was lacking low end, you can use the EQ to boost up the lows a little bit. And same if you felt like the right channel of speakers didn't have enough high end, you can raise the high end for the right channel only. We also have the EQ kill button to bypass these EQs so we can compare and contrast. We also got the RCA record output so that everything coming through the mixer can be sent out to an interface to record. Speaking of condenser microphones, we also have the phantom power button to power the condenser microphones that we plug into any of these channels. We also have the effects mute button in case we needed to mute the effects. We can also use this effects switch input here to control a device that can control the effects. We also have the phone's input here to connect a pair of headphones, and we can control the volume coming out of our headphones using the phone's knob here. Now we have many different ways we can play music through the mixer, including the RCA input on top, the USB input to connect a thumb drive, and the mixer also has Bluetooth so we can pair any smartphone or tablet. To switch between music sources, we're going to use the source button here, and then we can use the skip forward or previous buttons to switch between these different modes and more system preferences. To set up a Bluetooth device, we're going to press the sources button and use the previous or next buttons to cycle to the Bluetooth mode. We're going to press the play button to select this source, and as soon as we do that, the mixer will be looking for a device to connect to. So then I can go into the Bluetooth settings of my smartphone or tablet, search for the device that reads RPM870, and click on it to pair. So to hear the music coming through the mixer, I'm going to raise channels 7 and 8, and I'm also going to make sure the main left and right faders are raised to hear everything coming out of the speakers. So let's hear how it sounds. Awesome. Sounds really good. Now this mixer would be great for your karaoke setup since we can connect a Bluetooth device and set up multiple microphones to have people start singing along. So to set that up, I can take a microphone and XLR cable. I can plug the female end into my mic and then plug the other end into any of the available channels on my mixer. For today, let's use channel 1. I can then raise this gain knob here on channel 1 along with the volume fader for channel 1. And then to hear the microphone coming through the speakers, I'm also going to want to raise the main left and right faders here. And now if I turn on my microphone, check 1, 2, you should be able to hear my voice. Don't forget we also have the effects processor so we can give our voice some extra flair. For today, I'm going to use it and set it to preset 8 for the reverb and delay. I'm then going to use parameter 1 to set up the delay time and parameter 2 to set up the reverb time. Then I'm going to raise the effects knob on whichever channels I want effects on. And now you should be able to hear the reverb and delay coming through my voice. So to set up the music for my karaoke setup, I'm going to press the mode button, then use the previous and next buttons to cycle to the Bluetooth mode, then press the play button to enter the Bluetooth mode, and now my mixer will be looking for a device to connect to. From there, I can take my smartphone or tablet and go into the Bluetooth settings, search for the device that reads RPM870, and click on it to pair. Now to hear the music coming through, I'm going to raise channels 7 and 8, and from here I can go into the YouTube app, search for any karaoke version of a song, and with the mics all set up, I can sing along to the music while I'm reading the lyrics from my tablet. Hey now, you're an all-star, get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star, get the show on, get paid. All that glitters is gold, only shooting stars break the mold. Yeah! So we can expand our setup even further with additional speakers or subwoofers. To show you how to do that, I have one subwoofer on the floor here. I'm going to connect the sub to my mixer by using an XLR cable, but you can also use a 1/4-inch cable because we also have the 1/4-inch outputs here. So I'm going to take the male end of my XLR cable and plug it into the left input on my sub. Then I'm going to take the other end and plug it into the left XLR output on my mixer. Now these are the steps you want to follow if you're just setting up one subwoofer. But if you wanted to set up another subwoofer, you can also use the right output on your mixer. So now I can go ahead and turn on my subwoofer and set up the volume and crossover. Now let's go ahead and hear how it sounds. Yeah, that sub really makes a difference. Ooh. That's awesome. Nice. Now you can follow these same exact steps if you want to add additional powered speakers or amplifiers to power another set of passive speakers. So hopefully this showed you guys how easy it is to set up your RPM870. But of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.